right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Red Pill Investor podcast, as well as on my YouTube channel at Sell More Homes Now. Today, we've got a great topic I want to go ahead and share with you. It's going to be 5 common realtor myths. There's 5 common realtor myths that I've discovered in the marketplace these days. You know, as I've gone through my career for the last 23 years, I've been consistently hearing some common questions and misconceptions about wholesaling or assignment of contract, as we would call it in the realtor world, right? The problem, really, when you think about it, is there's 5 common problems that realtors have with myths, if you will, that typically come up. I mean, realtors who are investing have to do things differently. They have to speak differently, and they have to act differently other than non-realtors. And a lot of times it makes you wonder, what is true and what is not true. And a lot of times I get people emailing me or direct messaging me because I have a podcast related to this subject of wholesaling as a realtor. And I've been talking about it for a number of years now. I want you to understand a couple differences that we're going to make real clear in our discussion today. First, the difference between a real estate agent and a realtor. Now, a real estate agent is somebody who's passed the state exam. They've been licensed by the state to go ahead and sell real estate in that area. A realtor is the same thing, person who's achieved that same level, but they've actually subscribed to a code of ethics. And in this particular circumstance, they subscribe to it so that if they fail to meet that code of ethics or they get in some way found to be problematic, they cross the line, then they can get a financial fine, a financial penalty, for not doing what they're supposed to do. So if you're thinking about a real estate agent, then that's one thing. If you're talking about a realtor, we're talking about somebody who's subscribed to a code of ethics, and then you've obviously got your investor who's an unlicensed person. So if you've got a pen, let's go ahead and start with myth number 1 of the 5 common wholesaling realtor myths. Myth number 1 is that wholesaling is illegal. Wholesaling or assignment of contract is illegal. A lot of people will share this amongst the community, especially if you're a realtor who wholesales, many times you think what you're doing is illegal. You might have heard what you're doing from other people in your office or other people in your community telling you, hey, that's illegal. There's really nothing illegal about entering into a contract. All right? There's nothing illegal about selling your interest in that contract. What becomes unethical, not illegal, unethical, is when you violate the code of ethics as a realtor selling that interest. Right? As I mentioned before, the code of ethics is a thing you've subscribed to as a realtor. And if you've decided that you're going to go out and do assignment of contract as part of your investment strategy, or wholesaling as we might call it, then there are certain rules, certain regulations, certain things you need to do and subscribe to. Otherwise, if you don't, you could get a fine. And the reality is that is what separates realtors who invest versus real estate agents, is that ability to subscribe to a code of ethics. Which leads us to tip number 2, or myth number 2, I should say. Myth number 2 is that you have to have a license to wholesale, right? So we're thinking, okay, well, if the first one is that wholesaling is illegal, and it turns out that wholesaling is not illegal, well, then obviously you have to be licensed, right? No, clearly not, because if what made it legal for you to do it is the fact that you're a citizen entering into a private contract with another person, well, then another private person could enter into a contract as well. There's nothing preventing another person from going into that contract and selling that interest. Again, assignment of contract. There's nothing wrong with that. There's certainly nothing illegal. It's the same right as yours. They just don't have the same requirements that you do, right? But when you think about it, you might be thinking to yourself, well, gosh, it might be easier if I just wasn't a realtor. I won't have to worry about this code of ethics. And well, there's some resources and things that you can do that an investor who's unlicensed can't do. So there's trade-offs, right? Third myth I've always heard over the last 23 years, right? Wholesaling won't work in this marketplace. Have you ever heard this one? Give me a shout out if you've heard this one, because, I've heard this so many times from brokers, from realtors, from other agents, peers. When you think about it, a lot of people will tell you, gosh, that's just not going to work in this market. This market is really good. And it's true. We've had an exceptionally good market for 9 years straight, and that is unusual. Right? It's very unusual to have a good market like this, right? But the reality is that there's still opportunities, right? I wrote down people still need, to sell an inherited property. They don't want to live there, right? Taxes still need to get paid. Fires still happen in houses, right? Tenants still trash homes. Hoarders still exist. I mean, that's 5 people that I just came up with right off the top of my head. People that are actually selling properties at a discount this very day, right? So when you think about it, it needs to have a portion of your business time, and that, how big of that portion is, that's going to be dependent on your goals. I mean, if you're a realtor who enjoys going out and listing property, and this is just a sort of a side thing for you as it kind of comes up, as many of the people I've taught over the years have, then fine, that's fine. If this is a huge part of your business and you rarely take a listing, fine, spend your amount of time there. But regardless of how you do, you have to be clear about how much time you will devote, because this will eat up an awful lot of time. Tip number 4, myth number 4, and this one is a huge myth, guys. I hope you got plenty of ink in your pen. And guys, if this has been of any value to you, would you do me a favor? Take a second to share this on your social media. Share this with a friend. Share this in Messenger. Let somebody know that this is helpful. Or hey, take a second and write me a little comment. Send me a little message. Tell me what you thought, right? Tip number 4, hopefully you got a good pen. They don't want to work with a realtor. They don't want to work with a realtor, right? That's why they are calling an investor in the first place. Now, there's a lot of people I'm discovering as I get older, right? There's a lot of people who aren't built like me. Okay, there's a lot of people out there who are brand new in their career, and they don't necessarily have the gravitas, the force, let's just go get it. Let's just get it done, right? Maybe you're a little bit more timid than I am, right? And I understand, because trust me, 20 years ago, I wasn't nearly as confident as I am today. But when you think about it, we hear and think this all the time, just like any other one of these thoughts. This is a myth. This is false. This is utter lies. Let me explain to you why. Here's the God's honest truth, right? A, they own a distressed home. That's a big deal. If they have a distressed property, they need to take care of it. Another one, they need or want to sell it for cash, not list. Now, maybe it's because of the condition. Maybe it's because of their situation. Maybe it's because of their aggravation. They don't want to deal with it. But some people, there is a fragmentation of this market that will not and does not want to list. And if that's the case, well then, you want a fast sale, right? You don't want to list the house. Hey, you want to sell the home for cash, and I want to buy the home, and I want to be able to do what I want to do with it, and I don't want to list it either. I wrote down, you are in the business and you know people. Now, regardless of what you choose to do with the property, if you choose to keep it and repair it and use it as a rental or wholesale it for a quick dime, whatever you choose to do with the property, because you are in the business full time, you know people, and that you can bring a lot of information to bear, right? You also subscribe to a code of ethics, which means that by dealing with you, They know that you're not a felon. They know that you're going to act in a certain way, that they can trust you in a certain way, and that you at least tacitly agree to hold to certain ethical principles under threat of financial penalty, right? I wrote down, you have to tell them realistically what it's worth. Now, I've covered this in a previous podcast, but you have to tell them realistically what it's worth, and that does have value to somebody because it's good to know that you're not getting stolen from. Right? They want to know what their home is worth, and you have to share it with them. You have to kind of tell them. And if you're going to make an offer, hey, Mr. Seller, one of the things you probably want to know is what it's worth. And as a realtor, it's my job to tell you before we make an offer. The reality is when you present these facts, and tell me if I'm wrong on any one of them, right? They will oftentimes see the value of just plain using you. Fifth myth. This is the fifth myth. And this one is a good one. Boy, I'll tell you, I love this one. Wholesaling is only for beginners. Guys, I love this one. I really do. Because what happens then is it takes all those people who actually have some skill, people who actually do have some skill, all right, in learning how to acquire properties, takes them out of it because they're too good for it anymore, and puts them into this level where now they are in charge, and they subcontract this work out, and they rely on wholesalers and other people to bring them deals. Right? I'm so glad when people assume that mindset because that takes a really good person or somebody who could potentially be someone I'd have to compete against, right? And replaces them with somebody, well, maybe they've hired for $10, $12, $15 an hour. Maybe it's somebody from the Philippines texting. I don't know what they're doing. But when you think about it, when you think that wholesaling is only for beginners, then that limits your thought. I wrote down, let's just get down to lifestyle. All right, let's just get down to lifestyle. Sometimes it's easier to make a quick nickel than a long dime, right? I mean, you and I both know people who've gone out and spent lots of money, lots of time to reinvest into their property, and it took them a little bit longer than they hoped it would take to sell. Maybe in the midst of trying to sell the property, they discovered a problem. And the buyer canceled, and now they have to fix this problem and now put it back on the market in longer time. And gosh, it took a whole lot longer. Maybe it was just you're the one who wholesaled the deal to him. Maybe you got the better end of the deal because you got your money fast, you got it up front, and you didn't have to wait 6 months. Sometimes it's good to make a quick nickel rather than a long dime. I wrote down it's helpful to create other business opportunities. Right? Business begets business. When you are out there in the market, working with the people, talking to people who have to sell properties, you're going to learn who the players are. You're going to learn who's got to do what. And maybe you're not going to be able to do a deal with this guy today. Maybe not. Maybe you could list his property. I'm going to go into that in a future episode. But when you think about it, there's so many other opportunities that you have with this person that you could go ahead and do business with them, their family, their friends, someone they work with, someone they work for, someone they works for them. I mean, you never really know where the business comes from. So I wrote down business begets business. Plus, finally, less exposure to risk. When you're wholesaling property, a lot of people tend to think, as I said, it's for a beginner. But, is it really a beginner strategy? Is it really that dumb? Is it really that beginnerish to avoid risk and maximize your potential? I mean, sure. If your minimum to make a deal work is, $20,000 or whatever, okay, but it takes you 4 or 5 months to get that, and I turn around and I say my minimum to do a wholesale deal is $5,000, let's say, or whatever. Well, gosh, it's not going to take me that long to make your profit. And it probably isn't going to require all the headaches. Guys, I hope this podcast, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you're visiting me from Sell More Homes Now on YouTube, welcome to the Red Pill Investor channel. I'm trying to make more investor-friendly podcast material because I do recognize that there is a need for that material. If you are on the podcast listening to us from iTunes, guys, if you felt this was helpful, please give me a thumbs up. Please share that on your social networks because as you undoubtedly know, there's just not a lot of info out there. So guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your appreciation and your attention. And as always, I look forward to your comments below, and have a wonderful sales day. Bye-bye.